Well, hello, hello, and welcome to episode number 104 of the City Brew Tours podcast, where we explore the best craft beer scenes across the United States. Happy again to be joined by my co-host for this month, Glenn. We're getting to know each other really well this month.
It's been a great month,
Glenn
Brian.
Stoops, how's it going, Glenn?
With all these great beers from Grand Rapids, Michigan. No, it's good to be here. How was your holiday weekend, Brian?
Very good. Very good. Weather was gorgeous here in Pittsburgh. Did a couple shifts with the brewery, and those were really well. Things went really well. Very busy. And then on Saturday, attended to Pittsburgh brewery events, and one was Dancing Gnomes Lustra Day, which Lustra is their flagship pale ale. They brew 6 different variants of it, I think. They brew a half Lustra, a regular Lustra, double, triple, lager Lustra, and this year West Coast Lustra. So
Excellent.
that was great. Went there, drank a bunch of beers there, hung out with some friends, actually ran into the head brewer at my brewery, so it was nice to hang out with him and see him and his girlfriend out and about somewhere other than the brewery. And then we went on my way back. I stopped at my local brewery here around the corner, Grist House, and they were celebrating 9 years, which is pretty crazy to say. I remember when they opened up, and it was nice to go there and see them celebrating 9 years in their brand new tap room, which they just opened a month ago too. So really good time with brewery related events, and then spent some very quality time with my family yesterday. And
very cool.
Yeah. How about you? How was your holiday weekend?
It was pretty good. I wound up going to see some friends of mine were producing a children's show in the East Village that I went to, which just happened to be right across the street from the East Village outpost of Bronx Brewery. So took them out to lunch afterward. Well, they paid. I shouldn't say that we took them. We all had lunch together. And I don't know why that matters. So I said, like, that made it sound like I paid. I was being really generous. No, we all had lunch together. Had some wonderful Bronx Brewery beers. And then on the actual day of it, I wound up going to a movie in Brooklyn, and realized I was very near the Domino Park location of Other Half. So I went there, had a nice beer. So it's been rather quiet. From what I understand, if I'd been working the last couple of days, I think I've mentioned before that I work at the Statue of Liberty. From what I understand, it was quite the zoo there on Sunday and Monday. Because this really is, as we all know, it's the unofficial start to the summer season.
Yes. Start to the summer season, and also a start to a season that isn't really a season in anybody else's mind but mine. Because recently there was a large, I think there was a large Powerball or Mega Millions winner.
Okay.
Glenn, do you follow the lottery?
I generally do not,
Okay.
but I'm glad. I'm still enjoy hearing stories about it.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was someone that won a lottery recently, and the thing happens when somebody wins a big jackpot. Everybody knows their name. They take a picture with the check. It's something that's required when you win a big lottery. There's a stipulations that it's like you got to go and collect the check in person. You got to take promotional photos so that they can use you to promote the lottery, and get more people to buy a lottery ticket. So everybody knows who this person is. They know who their name is. They can get pictures of them because it's 2023 and the internet exists. And every time there's a big lottery, every so often this happens where people will create fake Instagram accounts and then start following people randomly.
Okay.
They'll create a fake Instagram account as this Powerball window, start following people randomly, and then message them saying like, "Hey, I'm giving out money. All you have to do is like and follow me, or all you have to do is reply."
Yeah.
And I found one of these this past weekend. This is the other thing I spent my Memorial Day weekend doing, trying to figure out what the scam is, because I can't figure out what the scam is. Like, I went it over in my head. I looked it up a little bit, and I just couldn't figure it out. So while I was working on the first scam Instagram account that followed me, another one did it. So I just decided to ask this person, "Hi, what is the scam? I don't understand this. I'm not going to tell on you. I'm not going to rat you out. Just I'm curious. I want to know what the scam is. Because I figured it was like the what they try to get the old people with a lot. Hey, this is
Oh, sure.
Amazon. You accidentally bought something from us. Let's send you a refund. Oops, we accidentally refunded you $10,000 too much. Now you have to wire us ten
Brian, to
thousand
be fair to
dollars
the
back.
old people, I think we all get that old people are the only ones who actually believe it.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
they're absolutely preying on
Like all the
people.
Chinese voicemails I get. I don't know if you get those.
Yeah, yes, yeah,
All the yeah, with like and telling me about how they're trying to they I need to upgrade my extended car warranty even though I don't own a car.
yeah. That's very funny that they really pounding on that in New York City and uh, in the boroughs.
Well, I mean, yeah, they don't know where I live. I could live in New Jersey for all they know. But anyway, so did
That's a
they
good point. That's
respond?
a good point. No, I mean they
Oh,
did.
okay,
They said, "No, I'm this real person.
I'm Santa Claus.
Yeah, I'm this real person. I'm really gonna give you money."
Yeah,
And I just don't know what it is. If they're gonna do that, I wonder if it's that scheme. If they're gonna say, "Oh, I meant to send you $500 and I accidentally send you $5,000. You have to wire me back $4,500."
yeah.
And they're gonna get some
Or I'm
poor,
gonna call the cops.
yeah, yeah, we're gonna take legal action against you
Sure.
because I'm Mavis the lottery winner. But anyways, I enjoyed doing that, although it didn't come to any fruition. Really, really wish I would have gotten some kind of satisfaction out of that because
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, generally you think fucking with trolls is a good idea, but it's yeah, it's never satisfying as you kind of would like it to be.
yeah, because they could just tell me like I'm not like they they made a fake Instagram account. I'm sure they made
Yeah.
it with some type of IP protection, some type of not IP, whatever it's called. Yeah, the IP. They probably protected their IP address through using like a proxy server or a VPN, what have you. So I just don't know why they just tell me. Just tell me what you're doing. Just tell me the scam is. I'm curious.
Well, maybe
Genuinely
instead,
curious.
maybe what you should do the next time is just say, "Hey, I think this is really great that you're doing this. I'd like to be your assistant.
I'd like to get involved.
I have lots of Instagram followers. How do I help you?" And then maybe they still probably won't do anything, but it would be fun playing with them, fucking with their head, all that.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're going to go with that tactic next. I admire this so much.
Yeah.
I want to buy in. I want to be an investor. Uh, so Glenn, today
Yes.
we are closing out the final episode featuring Grand Rapids with two more beers from our friends at Brewery Vivant.
Brewery
Um,
Vivant.
Brewery Vivant. We have their Big Red IPA as well
Yes,
as
that's what
their
your can says.
Rapid IPA. Yes, my can says Big Red. We will get
Uh,
into that.
we will.
Some
I just love that. Even before we brought it up, I'm seeing people mentioning this in the chat. That yes, this is
yeah,
Brian showed his. This one is mine. And I know some of you have this one as well.
yes. So um we will certainly get into that and shout out to our beer club subscribers in the chat pointing that out and already bringing that up to us. Yeah, so we got two hoppy beers to close out the month. We're just going to do a tasting, talk a little bit about these hop forward beers to close out the month, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do next month, which is a very special month that we hope to come out of the gate strong with, celebrating 2 years of this podcast existing and exploring beer scenes around the country. But first, we got to talk about tonight's beer. So, Glenn, let's open one of these up. Let's start with the
Yes,
aforementioned Big Red because this will be our
very
night.
happy to get my hands around this big red Coke.
Oh my God, mine is foaming like crazy. That was not meant to be. That was not a joke. Mine's seriously
Which was
foaming
not a
up.
joke. What happened? Was too excited there?
It got too excited, started foaming up all over
It's got a
the
really nice head there.
tip of the can, came up and over the ridge.
If you're gonna have a put a big red Coke in your mouth, you not want to have a healthy head there.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And I was excited for this beer because a beer style that I think gets a lot of appreciation in the Pacific Northwest, especially Oregon, Washington, Northern California. But I feel like the rest of the country do not appreciate as much these malt forward IPAs, especially red IPAs that are incorporating some type of crystal malts, caramel malts, and allowing those caramel malts, those sugary, sweet, malty flavors to really play against the bright, vibrant American hops. Hmm.
Absolutely, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've definitely over the years tasted more mild red ales, but it seems like the hoppy red ales are sort of like more like a cousin of an IPA. I was there, and I really enjoy it. We've talked before about how IPAs aren't always my first choice, but I like this one. This is actually I'm trying to time travel in my brain because I actually have had this beer once before when it
You
only had
have,
one name. Yeah.
you have. I before we get to that, first, I want to kind of point something out here that I think might tie into why you like a red ale more. It's those crystal malts that I mentioned, and
That makes sense.
just to get into malting nerdiness here for a little bit, most malts go through what is known as a kilning process, where they're dried out after being steeped in hot water, and then that kiln can actually add some color to the malt depending on how long they leave it in there. And the majority of malts that are used in the brewing industry go through a kilning process, with the exception being roasted malts, and that
Hmm.
typically is roasted barley, roast chocolate malt, black malt, these malts that are used predominantly in stouts, porters, barley wines, dark beers. And they're called roasted malts because they get roasted the same way that coffee does in a drum roaster, very high temperature, very low
Yeah.
moisture content. And for the most part, it is those super, super dark malts that only get that roasting process, with one big exception: crystal malts. Crystal
There you
malts
go.
actually get kilned to dry out partially and then get roasted. And that's why, like, I don't want to go as far as to say there's roasty coffee notes in here,
No,
but
I don't taste that.
there's a hint of like that roast character in the malt. I probably present a little bit more as like toasted bread almost, but I don't know. It's like you could tell there's that essence of a drum roaster in there, and this is a small cousin of those dark, bitter black malts that lead to the dark beers that we love, but just presented in a different character and paired with different ingredients to bring out this different end thing. That if the malt wasn't in there, Glenn, somebody like you probably wouldn't make that connection with this beer as much. I don't know. Maybe I'm just barking up the wrong tree here.
I also have a little bit of a sentimental attachment because, like, one of the first, I mean, obviously, when you're as old as I am, they're, I mean, not even much. You know, it can be 10 years younger than me and have this whole situation because since we've only really had the craft beer being a huge thing, most of us, if we're over 40, we're introduced to beers and we didn't have the whole craft beer scene to be in front of us. And the first beer I ever like really got attached to draft wise was Killian's Red.
Mm.
There was a place I went to. I would always get Killian's Red on draft. It was my favorite beer. So because of that, even though they don't always taste exactly the same, the way that my the memory center in my brain always brings me back to those good memories.
Hmm. There could be something to that.
If I were a scientist, I would say I know what the word for memory center is, so I didn't say the word memory twice. But I don't know if it's the hippocampus or something like that. But I didn't do that diligent research I should have.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Um, yeah, but this isn't your first experience with this particular beer either. You mentioned you have a fondness for Killian's, but I think you've seen this beer before.
Yeah. So in 2020, when we started the Beer Avengers podcast, I was initially we were going for our own local beers, and then we expanded just local beers everywhere. But at first, we were just doing local beers. And as I was preparing to figure out what I would have and feature on the show, I was subscribing to another mail order. Can I say what it is, or do we have to be like Johnny Carson talking to Tom Selleck and saying Magnum PIs on another network?
No, we can say it. Tavor.
Yeah, it's Tavor or Tavor. I've heard but yeah. So I was loading up my cart there, trying to figure out stuff I wanted, stuff I could feature on the show, and they're all pretty much always good beers they have on there. And when I saw this one, I'm going to confess that because there were not two names 3 years ago, it was
No.
just the Big Red Coke. And I saw that, and this might be juvenile, might be childish, but I saw that like, well, I know that's going to be a good beer, and I also want to get that beer so I can say the name of it on the show. I'm going to say it right up front. It's all of our inner eighth graders. I love the idea of talking about the Big Red Cock and getting as many puns about that in there. And it was also a really good beer. And so I'm really glad to be having it again. But that was if anyone's looking up the our full back catalog is available. That's episode 9 on the Beer Ventures podcast.
Oh
If you want to
boy.
hear my first experience with Big Red Coke.
Yeah, so the story is that they actually discontinued this beer in 2020.
Right, and that was
They
the year I got it.
decided
Yeah,
they decided, yeah, shortly after Glenn bought it, they probably heard Glenn make all those puns, and they were like, "Oh boy, we got to
it's
really
my
shut this.
fault.
We got to shut this down." This fucking guy on a podcast is just really drilling this Big Red Cock name
I
into the
was actually,
ground.
honestly, Brian, I was impressed with the fact that I felt that, like, with having the spelling of this one, it's kind of ingenious because it's only dirty if you say it out loud. And it seemed to be that, like, this could very easily be right there on the grocery store shelf and no one would make a fuss out of it because it's spelled COQ.
Yeah, it
And there's a
should be.
picture of a rooster right there.
Yeah, so as somebody in the chat is saying, the name was Cock Blocked,
Yeah.
Coke Blocked.
Cook blocked.
And they re-released it as just Big Red with because people love this beer. This was a beer that they associated so much with Brewery Vivant. If you don't know, COQ is the French word for chicken, I believe, more specifically rooster.
Yes, which is why we were talking about cook, because like coq au vin is the same thing. It's
Yeah,
a rooster with wine.
a rooster with wine, and this is a rooster with red malts and citra hops.
Well, and also this is specifically called a red ale, and you were talking about like hop forward stuff, but I also know that a lot of their, if we could, I'd love to talk about how that they evolved and have done their various other things because all the information I got on them when I got that beer 3 years ago was that they specialized in farmhouse ales. And that's why, the rooster is such an important theme for, I mean, even
Yeah,
not just on the Big Red Cock. It's the rooster is on, it's on with the sticker they gave us has that
it's their
rooster on it.
logo. Yeah,
It's their logo. Yeah.
it's the Brewery Vivant logo.
It's their signature beer.
Yeah, yeah, and I imagine like you had a connection with Killian's as it being the first one of the first craft beers you fell in love with on draft. I
Yeah.
imagine people associated the Big Red Coke with Brewery Vivant and their experience that they had built around what they loved about Brewery Vivant had something tied into this beer. And when it went away, you can understand why people were upset. If
Of course.
you could commend Brewery Vivant for saying, "Hey, we want to mature, we want to grow past this really childish name," which it's childish, but Glenn, I probably would have done the same thing and bought the
There you
can
go.
of
All
it.
right. Good. Thank you for not shaming me.
Yeah, I mean, we can admit that it is childish, it's silly, but we can also admit that we're gonna laugh at it too
Dick
and
jokes are funny. They
make our
are.
dumb
Yeah.
jokes. But
Yeah.
as a big brewery, as someone that's trying to be representative of all your employees and all your shareholders' wishes, and trying to be a welcoming brand to everyone, and not make silly sexual jokes, they
Yes.
say, "Hey, let's do something about this." And I can understand why people are like, "Hey, just don't get rid of the beer entirely." So cheers, props to Brewery Vivant for bringing it back, appeasing the people, and also giving it a rebrand while keeping homage to its roots,
And
and
I
also
guess,
apparently
yeah. keeping
keeping some of the labels because yeah, Glenn got one of the blue
Apparently
ones.
half of the people in the chat did as well. So yeah, that's in fact, like some of the people specifically got 2 boxes like you did, and one box said one name, one said the other. I did want to say one thing when you referred to Killian's Red as a craft beer. I would love to say that it
Uh,
was, but I
it,
think even
it,
back then they were owned by Coors.
Yes, that's
At least
yeah,
American distribution was.
yeah. Fall in love with a beer, not
Yes.
necessarily a craft beer. A draft. I think I said a draft beer actually.
I did. Oh,
That,
you did. Okay, well then that's absolutely right, because I think every once
yeah,
in a while I would have it in a that would and, well, that was actually funny that you say that, because that's part of how I started to be a draft beer snob in some degree, because at some every once in a while I'd get Killian's in a bottle, and it just wasn't as good as it was on draft at the
yeah.
TB Hopkins in the Oregon District, Dayton, Ohio.
Shout out to Dayton.
Yes.
Shout out to Dan Patrick, the one known Dayton
Oh, the
Fire
ESPN
graduate.
guy.
Yeah, he went to Dayton.
Yeah, he used a different name when he was there.
Wait, he went
No, I
under
mean
his original name there
Dan
then?
Pugh. Dan
Yeah,
Pugh. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
there was a classic rock station that I used to listen to. It was the one I always listened to. It was called WTUE, and he was one of the morning guys, and he was Dan Pugh, and he did all kinds of funny voices and funny characters. And then it was funny when I heard that he was becoming a big ESPN guy, but now he's Dan Patrick, because Pugh just sounds too much like, I guess, when you smell something bad.
Yeah. Dan Pugh, or you're a church bench salesman.
Yeah.
All right.
Pugh. Yeah.
Oh, Pugh, like
Yeah.
like Florence Pugh
Like Florence Pugh, exactly.
from Midsummer.
Midsummer and Little Women, and I think there was a Lady Macbeth thing she was in as well.
Lots of stuff. She's a fantastic actress.
Yeah,
Let's get to our second beer here.
excellent.
Hops,
All right,
hops, followed by more hops. We have kind of what I would think would be their signature, what they tend to be the signature IPA of Grand Rapids.
that's good. I
The
assumed
Rapid
that why it was
IPA.
called Rapid IPA, but barring an expert, I can't tell for sure. But I guess we just have to surmise on these things on our own. All right, yeah, let's taste this. Oh, it's nice. Is it hazy? Yeah, I guess it is. I couldn't tell. Sometimes these ones kind of start to clear up after you pour them, but yeah, I still can't see. Yeah, I guess this is a hazy. Cheers, Brian.
Cheers. Mm.
That's really nice. I see. Yeah, they're not on the side of the can. They're not committing to. Well, they're calling this an American style IPA. Right now, Brian, someone who's working in a brewery, and you're keeping track of how you label different things, all of that. I mean, I feel like there are two distinct American styles of IPA. So, according to the BJ, oh, I'm forgetting all the
CP.
yes, according to them, what constitutes an American IPA?
So American IPA is its own category.
So it's neither West Coast nor Northeast.
So funny enough, according to the BJCP, West Coast IPA is not a category, and up until recently, the most recent guidelines they released, New England IPA, or hazy IPA, as some
Mm-hmm.
people incorrectly call it. Those aren't actual categories. American IPA is its own category. And a classic example would be something like Bell's Two Hearted, would be kind of definitive
Okay.
American IPA, Stone IPA, um, and it's moderately to aggressively hopped, uh, moderate to aggressive alcohol. I think topping out at about 7.5%, pale and color, but American IPA, that category can go pretty strong in the SRM
Okay.
category. I think up into the double digits in terms of
All right.
color, especially for you see we have a beer like this that's
Yeah, it's dark,
pretty
but actually, the
amber.
more I look at it, it is not especially hazy. It is I feel like if there's no West Coast IPA category in the BJCP, it feels to me that West Coast is kind of the closest, because closer to an American IPA than a hazy IPA.
Yeah, I think West Coast, yeah, is more of a spin-off of the typical.
American IPA.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I feel like that the West, I don't think we started calling them. I think they were just called IPAs. I mean, I know what the BJCP did, but as far as most people, I think they were calling them IPAs. I don't feel like we started calling them West Coast IPAs until hazies became so popular.
No. Definitely before then, because
Okay.
Green Flash kind of paved the way and named it by releasing their Green Flash West Coast IPA. And I think people just started calling them that because um, breweries like Bell's and Victory, and even Trogs to a lesser extent, really became known for their IPAs. Well, Bell's, especially Victory, especially with Hop Devil, and um, they had they were dry, but they still had some body to them. They didn't finish super dry, almost like on dry. And then
Yeah.
these West Coast IPAs started to come along. Not so much like Russian River, but Green Flash, Stone, um, Pizza Port definitely all come to mind. And I think just because they were out on the West Coast, specifically coastal California, like literally on the coast, literally in coastal towns, they just became associated with West Coast, where
Okay.
American IPA or East Coast IPA, as people would have labeled 60 Minute or Victory Hop Devil, was
Okay.
a little bit more balanced and bodied. So,
And now it's fascinating that like the two predominant ones are West Coast and Northeast, and all breweries everywhere are making both of them. And to arguably, the Northeast one is probably there's no you can get Northeast style IPA all over the country. Every brewery all over the country is making those because that's such a trend.
yeah, that's most definitely like the big trend at the moment now. Sorry, just looking there. Yeah, certainly, definitely the big trend now. As we talked last week, the New England IPA kind of completely upended the market. And now,
Right.
where we had a lot of that variance, where there was a lot of American IPA, what people will call American IPA, there was English IPA out there. There was variants like Red IPA and Black IPA, and then there was West Coast IPA. Now it's like everybody has hazy New England style IPA. And then the exception is, hey, we brewed a red IPA. Hey, we brewed a West Coast IPA. Hey, we brewed a Northwest IPA. Like,
I guess the more I taste this one, the more, and then when you mention the Bell's Two Hearted, what I think about this one, I think actually it's an IPA that I may not like quite as much as the hazy, but in some ways I like better than your standard West Coast because it has that hop forward profile, but it's not as aggressive as your typical West Coast IPA. I mean, West Coast IPAs are often, at least were often described as like a punch in the face in a good
hot
way.
bomb. Yeah.
Yeah, people would say like, "Oh yeah, oh have you tried this one?" It's like a punch in the face, and they meant that in a positive way.
Yeah. So bitter, it's going to take the enamel off your teeth. And I think that
Yeah.
had a
Oh,
lot
you
to
got to
do.
try this one. Yeah.
It had a lot to do with those finishing gravities and really being dry beers, where I think
Yeah.
American IPA, East Coast IPA, and especially New England IPA have much higher finishing gravities and a lot more residual sugar and a lot more body, and that
Yeah.
really helps support a more well-rounded beer in terms of the palatability of it.
Yeah. I
So,
definitely find this more palatable than your average hot bomb.
mm. And this is, yeah, a great example. We've been talking so much about East Coast and West Coast IPA. This is a phenomenal American IPA
It really is.
coming out of Michigan, the no coast,
The
Canada,
Midwest.
Canada coast, Lakes region. I've heard Great Lakes region or Lakes
So
region
is
thrown
are you
around
saying
a
that
lot.
Michigan? Do you think Michigan is two separate categories? Because I still, having grown up in Ohio, I've always thought of like, even though the third coast, Dale
There we
calls it.
go. Ah, like,
I
yeah,
guess I felt like, obviously you get south of Ohio, it becomes the South, but like if it like Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, as well as those further west, are all sort of considered to be Midwest. But yeah, the idea, whatever the but third coast, I think that's reasonable as well.
yeah. Hey, Glenn, I have a surprise for you.
Yes,
Hey guys, can you see me?
we
We
can,
can.
All right.
and we can hear
So
you.
coming in so late here.
No worries, no worries. We'll get to a lot of our questions that we have here tonight. We'll talk a little bit about the beers that we have featured from your brewery, and we'll we'll make it. We'll act like it never happened, and we'll just keep rolling forward and getting going here. So
Nice. Yes. There we go.
no
Sit in here.
worries.
Yeah, we've been talking about all sorts of theoretical things about things we would ask you if you were here. So happy you're here now, so we can get those big answers we've been hoping for.
Yes. So
Perfect.
we will. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
I was gonna say, lay it on me. You got some questions? I'm ready.
We do. We're going to start with you, like we do with all of our guests, with our quick step questions. These are fast questions. We want fast answers, and these will help to help us get to know you fast. So, what's your favorite non-Brewery Vivant beer?
Oh my gosh. Well, in my fridge, I've always got some Belgian beers. Leffe is always I just have a fond memory of that beer. And being in Michigan, I grew up in Bells, so you always find some or something in my non-thinking good beer.
Definitely. Favorite season in Grand Rapids?
Oh, it's definitely fall. Fall's a great beer drinking season. I was a soccer player. It's the best season to eat food. Fall's definitely hands down it.
Awesome. If you had to pick one album that you had to listen to for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Probably OK Computer, Radiohead.
Oh, phenomenal answer. Favorite place you've ever traveled? I think I probably can guess the same.
Yeah, well, surprisingly, my favorite place is Italy.
Oh.
I do love Belgium, but I love all things Italian, and surprisingly, there's a growing beer culture there too.
That's true.
Yeah, people are loving Italian pills over here for sure.
Yeah.
And finally, have you
brewing
seen
school with brews in Italy, so it's kind of cool too.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And then our final quick tip question, as always. Have you ever seen Bigfoot?
Oh man, never seen Bigfoot.
Okay. I appreciate the honesty. I'm glad that nobody has just made up a fake Bigfoot story to tell us, which we don't know if they would have anyways. They could.
It could happen.
Yeah.
Jason, we've really been enjoying both of these beers. The one we started out with is the one where I'm not sure what to call it because we all got labels with different names. And in fact, I got this for the first time several years ago when it was only under one name. But of course, that is the Big Red, to use the French pronunciation, either Big Red or Big Red Coke.
Yeah.
And it's a really fantastic beer. Curious to know what you have to tell us about this, about the history of it, how it's one of your flagship beers, and what the decision was to maybe rebrand it a little bit.
Yeah, that was like a pub favorite beer. We're just gonna make one batch of it, so we kind of gave it a goofy name because you don't have to think too hard when it's just going on at the pub. And then wouldn't you know it like took off, and next you know we have it in distribution and things like that. And it's got a tongue-in-cheek name, which back when we started 10 12 years ago, things were a lot less sensitive. And then it's a fun name, and it has a meaning back to our logo, cock being the French word for rooster, so it had a good play. And of course, there's lots of jokes that come out of that, but we did kind of during that COVID time kind of step back and wonder if maybe it was time to question that name. And so we brought it back as a special batch, and we just dropped cock off. But everyone that knows that beer and loves it still calls it by its original name, and I think no funds lost. We don't have to risk potentially offending someone, which is hard to do these days, to not offend somebody. But
Jason, the funny thing is, it seems about half of us, at least those who are in the room, and probably half of us got it with the new name, and half of us got it with the old name.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of the changeover.
Okay.
We ran through the last cans that we had, and then we had a label with the new font. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of funny, but it lives on.
So as I mentioned earlier, not only the founder of our featured brewery tonight, Brewery Vivant, but also another brewery that we featured this month, Broadleaf. And as I mentioned, in the 90s, you co-founded a fairly well-known and fairly influential Michigan brewery, New Holland. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. What originally got you interested in the beer world and led you to this path of being involved in three pretty serious brewing endeavors?
Well, New Holland was really that was right out of college. Me and a good friend of mine, we just loved beer, and it was all passion. There was really not much of a beer culture in Michigan at that time. So, rather than get real jobs with our majors, we decided to uh, go into brewing, and it happened to work out. That's a good sized brewery, and we did some amazing things back, in that uh, timeline. There weren't a lot of examples. I think we had the 15th brewing license in Michigan at that time. Now
Wow.
there's 400 plus. That was 1997. That's the same year Founders started as well. Also, fraternity brothers of ours, same college. Um, and then, fast forward, I was there about 10 years. I left in 2005, and my wife and I started this journey for Brewery Vivant, and we wanted to do that together. And of course, things take a little longer to get started. It took us about 2009 to find the building, 2010 to get open, and but that's been an amazing experience too. And her and I got to build that together. And then Broadleaf was kind of a spin-off of that, as we're really try to build Vivant as like a classic European style beer, and then kind of a brewery, and then we do some fun things off of that. But all of these hazy beers and adjunct stouts and things like that never seem to really fit that theme very well. So we spun off and made Broadleaf to kind of capture all of our experimental beers. And I'm a fan of all beer, so I love classic Belgians. I like super dry saisons, but I really love hazy IPAs too, and I love learning about it and how all these processes come together. And that's really the fun part for me. So it's fun to have kind of that duality where we can play around and continue to learn and experiment.
Excellent. Jason, going from New Holland and then going on to Brewery Vivant and Broadleaf, what do you think what you were most influenced by as far as what you took away from that experience to bring, I guess, both positive and negative? Like, what did you want to do with your brewery and what did you want to avoid?
Well, when I left New Holland, we were kind of generalists. We are just making all things craft beer.
Yeah.
But I really focusing on a niche would be really interesting.
Yeah.
And the world of beer turned a little different than I thought, but really, almost a niche within a niche. So we were really trying to focus on these rustic farmhouse kind of undefinable beers, but agricultural influence. And I love that, and I love how all those beers went with food really well. And in our travels, just eating seasonally and drinking beer that goes with those foods was just kind of amazing. And that was really our focus for Vivant. So really kind of slicing it, a little thinner, and really putting these constraints around ourselves really let us kind of grow that creativity within that window. So that's kind of the biggest difference. And then having that experience, I guess, just knowing that we can do it. When we started New Holland, we knew nothing. We just had young, and being an entrepreneur, I think not. You have to be kind of like a ready, fire, aim kind of a person. To just kind of see an opportunity and go for it, and know that you'll figure it out along the way. So I mean, that's probably the biggest thing I took from that experience.
Yeah, so you mentioned, leaving there in 2005, getting the idea for Brewery Vivant, finding a building in 2009, and this brewery would eventually go on to become the world's first LEED certified microbrewery. And that just a refresher for everybody, that stands for leadership in, oh my God, I forget it. Leadership and excellence in energy development.
I don't know, Brian.
And
The last
energy
time this came up, I Googled it, and I don't remember what.
I'm sure
That was
Jason
like,
knows. Let him tell us.
oh
yeah,
yeah,
leadership and environmental energy and environmental design.
Leadership in energy and environmental design. So you were the Brewery Vivant is the world's first LEED certified microbrewery. Was that included in your original plans, or is that something that just evolved out of that process of starting something that you and your wife wanted to build?
Yeah, that was in our business plan. We really, when we created Brewery Vivant, we wanted it to be, a heavy sustainable focus, and that was one of the things that was a a way that we could show, by going through that process, you kind of verify that you've done all the things in a proper way, and they really fit, not just the construction of our building, but really the philosophy that we wanted to run our business with. Everything's looking for the long term. So, let's when we bring in new, heating, cooling, let's bring in super efficient stuff, that'll last for 20 years, and we'll save money over that 20 years instead of doing just what's cheapest and fastest. And then everything from, recycling the construction waste that we had to pull out of there. So like wood went in one pile, concrete in another pile. Any furniture that could be reused went to, Habitat for Humanity, things like that. So just like being smart about it, but it really fit the way that we think about business in general. So it's kind of a mashup of her world coming from the sustainability, corporate side, and then me having a history with, starting a brewing business, and then her and I kind of putting those worlds together and trying to build something that, build a business in a way that we thought could be an example to show people how you could do the right things and be a good business.
Awesome.
excellent. Jason, we've also really been enjoying this this Rapid IPA. I love the, working the name of the city into the beer. So this like it's a perfect Grand Rapids IPA. Talking about how it's just a wonderful example of your classic American IPA. When everything these days are mostly West Coast or hazy, just a standard IPA, hop forward but not like punch you in the face. What do you want to tell us about this beer?
Well, that was one of the things, like right before COVID hit, we wanted to, just show that we can make just a classic, drinkable, everyday IPA. So that's kind of what we went for, trying to, create an IPA that came from Grand Rapids and outward. So kind of using some old school hops in there. Cascade was a, classic hop back in my day, but it's really kind of fell out of favor. But you can get tease a lot of nice flavors from that hop, and and to have an IPA that's not going to like tear your face off, or you can just drink it occasions. And we really kind of made it to be like a thinking of a draft pours around the city, and that's kind of how the Rapid name came into it. And it's been, it's been great. It's one of the top sellers at our pub. Farmhand is our first beer we ever made. That still is our top seller, but Rapid's right behind it at the pub. So
I can see, we can see why.
Yeah, it's really good.
and it's kind of, we didn't filter it tight, so it's clear. There's a little bit of haze in there. Not haze, but kind of an unfilteredness that we wanted to kind of let them come forward in. So it's kind of a
it's haze before John Kimmick came and muddled everything up. This is classic IPA haze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jason, what is one thing that what is one thing other than the beer scene that you wish Grand Rapids was more well known for?
Well, our food scene's really come a long ways. So I mean, that's the other part I think that goes hand in hand. I don't want to, in the Midwest, uh, you know, trends seem to take a little longer. Like you see things happen on the coast and it takes a little longer to build the trust for people to try these types of things in the Midwest. You know, we're known for like comfort foods and, people maybe not being super adventurous. So I wish people would be more trusting of coming to a place like ours and, trying something besides just the burger. We have a burger, it's great, but, we really try to do some really different things with some of our other dishes, and same thing with beer. You can get, the Rapid IPA. It's a safe beer to get, but man, we have all sorts of like barrel aged beers, super dry beers, sour beers, and I just wish people would expand their horizons a little bit and just be open to try things. And it does work better in the pub when we can talk to people, give samples, things like that. And that's what's so great about it. But just people trying new things. That's kind of what I wish people would be up for. They tend to come. A lot of people come and know what they're going to get before they get there. But if your mind's open, we'd love to kind of lead you down a different path and create a new experience for people. But it takes a little trust to do that.
No, that's great. Yeah. In fact, I try to embrace that as much as I can. I've talked a lot about on the show about how there are certain beers that I'm predisposed to like, and I'm always looking for that. But if there's something new and something interesting, I always try to be, I think the term is GGG, or good giving in game. Every time I see something that I like, I may not have it twice if I don't like it, but I will always give it a try. And I can see that by Brian's expression, he knows where GGG comes from. And maybe some people who are listening know where that originated as well. But it applies to all sorts of things, not just what you're thinking of, Brian.
Glenn, I was very pleasantly surprised by you bringing that reference into the show.
It belongs. I think it belongs in beer as well as it does with a podcast about where that term originally came from.
Oh boy. I guess that's a good button to end it on. Jason, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for supplying beers for this episode, a bunch of episodes this month. Anything to plug? Where should people follow Brewery Vivant and Broadleaf and try to keep up to date with all things that are in your purview?
Yeah, so Brewery Vivant, all the handles you would think, our website, Instagram, Facebook, all the places, easy to find. We are doing, just by the way, we're doing our Wood Age Beer Fest again. We haven't done it in 4 years. That's going to be September 16.
Oh boy.
So that'll be back. And then this year will be a little bit different because we're going to bring broadleaf stuff there too, along with some of our draft cocktails and stuff. So it'll be a little bit of an evolution festival. And then, broadleaf, of course, known for IPAs and we're really kind of making a name for ourselves in spirits too on that side. So we'll be showing some of those off, but broadleafbeer.com, and then all the handles kind of, around that as well.
Yeah, at this two locations specifically, I have them in front of here, at Broadleaf Westside or at Broadleaf Kentwood on Instagram. So go over to Instagram and pick the broadleaf of your choosing and follow along with what they're doing. Different menus at both places, different cocktail menus, different vibes at both places. Yeah. So maybe go follow both of them.
Who knows? Maybe I'll need to actually buy a car. Every time I say this every time, and to say it like I'm still discovering it the first time, but every time I co-host one of these episodes, I think like I need to go visit this place. I need to go find the things like because clearly I'm only able to get a small amount of what Brewery Vivant and Broadleaf has. Well, actually, none of it here in New York City. It's only because of City Brew Tours and other mail order things that I've been able to get it. But even Dragons, even New Holland, a lot of we only get a small percentage of what's there. And I've just, it's often New Holland is very high on my list of places to visit as well. Just like I should just go, take a road trip and visit everywhere.
Yeah, our West Side location is right across the street from their Grand Rapids location, so be an efficient drive for you.
Yeah, maybe find a hotel that's in walking distance of both, so I don't have to worry about pacing myself.
Again, thanks to Brewery Vivant and Broadleaf for supplying beers for the beer club and for our episodes. If you're interested in learning more about the beer club, head over to shop.citybrewtours.com and explore subscription options. You not only help support this show, but you'll get great local beers shipped to you on a monthly basis from our featured city. And you'll also get perks and benefits of joining the beer club from the nation's oldest brewery tour company, City Brew Tours. So again, head over to shop.citybrewtours.com for subscription options. Shout out to our other featured breweries this month, as we mentioned, Brewery Vivant and Broadleaf Brewery and Spirits, but also shout out to Justin Dale from Brewery Nick's. Awesome guest we featured earlier this month, brewing amazing gluten-free beers up there in Grand Rapids. Glenn, final thought, anything to plug?
I mean, the usual, the Beer Avengers podcast. We've been going for going on 3 years. Tomorrow we're recording episode 79. Having some wonderful beers. I'll probably talk about this a little bit on that. You never can tell because it's always a freewheeling discussion. You can find us at the Beer Avengers at any of the socials, thebeeravengers.com, and any place where you get your podcast, you can find that. The Beer Avengers. Our whole back catalog available free there. So yeah, check it out.
One more plug before we do our closing here. Again, last week we mentioned big inspiration to the show. Alex Kidd, the founder of Don't Drink Beers, is going through some difficult times, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer that has spread to different parts of his body. So we're going to throw the GoFundMe link in the episode description again. So if you can, if you're financially able to support, any donation would be greatly appreciated to help out somebody that has been so influential to the overall beer scene and the people that cover beer and write about beer in this modern, weird 2023 beer world that we have. Alex is very important to that. So if you can help support him and his family, it would be much appreciated. Next week, we'll be back with a very special month of episodes. It will be our 2-year anniversary since we started this podcast, and we are going back to our roots, back to our beginnings, and featuring the first city that we ever featured on this show. We will be journeying back to Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll be featuring some familiar faces from the last time that we featured Cincinnati, but we're also adding some new and extremely interesting breweries to the lineup for Cincinnati. And we have all new beers. So if you've been subscribing since the beginning, first of all, shout out. You roll. You're an awesome person you are. Go use that in your affirmations tomorrow. But also,
I am an awesome person.
Yeah, I am.
Just look in the mirror. I am an awesome person.
I am an original Beer Club subscriber.
Good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
We'll be featuring all new beers, talking to new guests, and before we do that next week, I'm going to give a shameless plug. Go check out my episode of Next Exit with my friend Kenny Gold from Untapped. We featured Cincinnati and a couple of the breweries that we're going to be talking about next month are featured on there, but we're going to go even further in depth on our 4 episodes featuring Cincinnati, Ohio next month, basically Kentucky. And that's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, that's where the Cincinnati airport is. Cincinnati airport is in Kentucky.
Cincinnati airport is in Kentucky, yeah. I mean, it's right over the river. So close.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much to everybody that joined us this month. Thank you again to our featured breweries, Brewery Nick's, Brewery Vivant, and Broadleaf. Thanks, Jason, for joining us tonight. And thank you, Glenn, for co-hosting with me this month.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
All right, everybody.
Thanks.
We'll see you.
Appreciate it. All right.
Thanks, Jason. Until next week, be safe, stay safe, be kind, and support your local breweries, everybody. Cheers.